Welcome everybody to the regular school committee meeting of January 14th, 2014. Calling the meeting to order at 6:12 p.m. First item on our agenda is the consent agenda, as usual. If there are no objections, we'll consider the warrants for December 20th, 2013, January 3rd, 2014, and January 17th, 2014 approved, as well as the minutes of the December 3rd, 2013 meeting. Excellent. First item on the list is correspondence. There was one correspondence that was posted about the calendar discussion.
Right.
I think it was sent to Lynn, who's actually not here yet. But it was, the gist of it was in favor of the alternate vacation plan. The MSBA FY14, the SOI, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. This is the not quite annual an invitation to participate in a school building project. And so just informing the school committee that we are being invited to participate if we have a project. We don't have a project, so we won't be participating at that level. There is a piece of this that I've talked briefly with the two town managers that would be appropriate for their capital budget, and I'll be talking with them to see if they want to jointly work with us, but I need to read the grant more carefully. But it would be existing things that are already in our capital plan or their capital plan that's related to the schools, so it's not a new project.
Okay. And then last, for correspondence from a citizen from the town of Bolton requesting further consideration for the kindergarten, extending the full day option, because currently there's a wait list for students that are looking to get, or families that are looking to get their students into full day kindergarten. And I know that there is something in the works in the proposal for the budget.
Yes, so we're, this happens annually because of the way we do school, our all-day kindergarten program. It is a grant-funded program, and so we have essentially, historically, been limited to a certain number of sections. In most years, we were able to do that in a way that it really winnows down the wait list, but we do cap the class sizes at 20, and then so that they stay reasonably small. And so we're trying this year, and I'm proposing it on the 28th, an early childhood initiative that might more fully address the wait list in a more permanent way for the future. So a little more patience for about 2 more weeks. We have to refine some aspects of it.
Great. Anybody else have any other correspondence?
I have had a few phone calls, 7 phone calls from different families who didn't want to put anything in writing but did want to have discussion about the needs to reevaluate the drama program. The phone calls, half of them initially started talking about the fact that there were a lot of kids who tried out for the Les Mis show, the musical, and I think there's over 100 kids in the program, but they could only have spots for less than half of those kids. And some people were disappointed because their kid didn't get in, and I even had students call and express disappointment.
I got some calls too, by the way.
But everybody can't get in. It's a selected process. But the conversation turned, and with those folks, and then other people called, the conversation was strictly about the fact that they don't feel that the drama program is supporting the needs of the district at the high school. And I think that the good news is it's a nod to the fact that the program's so strong. There's so many kids there. There's so much talent across this district. But it's grown beyond the way it functions and the way it's always functioned. And I think I've had conversation with Dr. Graham, and he's been very open to, looking at some opportunities and possibilities, but I think it's something we're going to have to I'm hoping that folks who are concerned about it do express their concern and contact Dr. Graham as well, because I don't think that I would hate to see students who can't participate leaving to go to other venues, and that is starting to happen. But when you have students who can't even be in the tech crew because there are too many students, now we're starting to talk about, exclusion, so we really need to, and Dr. Graham's taking it seriously, so hopefully we'll have some type of opportunities.
Any other correspondence? Okay. Next up is our superintendent's report.
So we have an early release this Friday. It's our first of the new calendar year. It's January 17th. So we certainly want parents to be aware of that for the schedule change. We're in the process of putting the finishing touches for FY15 budget development, and we are drawing into 3 major initiatives around early childhood, as I mentioned before, response to intervention, and a continuation of our theme around STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's at the district level, and then the schools have their school improvement plans that they are building their budgets based on. We had a wonderful annual Scholars Luncheon just recently at the Assumption College, where we recognized Emily Kastner. Dr. Graham and myself were able to enjoy a very nice meal with her and about 70 students that were recognized by their own high schools. So it was really a very nice afternoon, and we'll bring Emily here so that she can be recognized more fully in front of her parents and the community at large. Just updates on things that I've been involved in. I've been continuing to stay connected with the group that I traveled with to Finland, and we're working on putting together proposals for a white paper around global education. We're currently reading a book called World Class Learners by Young Chow, and we hope to publish that this spring, and trying to, again, encourage global education in all aspects of curriculum, not just looking at narrow foreign language, for example. That's not the purpose of it. It's really to look at culture and building bridges between and among cultures across our continents.
Did you say publish?
Pardon me?
Did you say publish?
Yes, a narrow term of publish. I mean, we will probably publish it to our organizations, essentially, although there was some bravado about putting them together as a book, but that may be getting ahead of ourselves. I don't know.
So you're doing this with Mr. Chow, or?
No. Although there was a presentation by Mr. Chow. No, we'll do it as a group. These are superintendents and assistant superintendents that are, and other trips. Later in the meeting, Nancy's going to talk about Tri-Town and just update folks on where we are with the latest meeting. I want to encourage parents. We have on our website, or will have on our website, information about nominations for Massachusetts Teacher of the Year. Parents may nominate someone as well as students. And there are 2 others as well regarding Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching, as well as History Teacher for grades 7 through 12. Just some communications that I've been having with a variety of folks in the area. I know we've been talking about calendar and some changes there, and we have a couple of different versions of the calendar proposal on the table. But I just want you to know that I've been approached by very diverse sections geographically, from a parent who leads the PTO at Algonquin and the superintendent at Leominster, to talk about student schedules. As many of you know, I'm a proponent of flipping our elementary schedule with our high school schedule to allow for, and middle school, to allow for students to have more sleep as adolescents. I think it's the research is becoming more and more prominent that it's the best thing for kids and learning. However, like similar conversations around the calendar, it's very challenging to do because there are a lot of conflicts that are created around schedules that have been in place for literally 100 years in terms of time. But schools are doing it slowly and in small increments. I remind people that 10 years ago. School started here, the year before I arrived, I believe it was 7:10. The year I did arrive, it was 7:20, and we've been creeping up. We're now at 7:40. So maybe in 30 years we'll be at 9 o'clock. I don't know how it'll work. But I just want you to know there are other groups out there that are trying to, as we've discussed, try to pull a group together to build capacity around this idea of flipping those schedules to make it work. We have calendar on the agenda tonight for later discussion. The Assabet Valley Collaborative Agreement is in your packet for a vote. It was on the calendar for us for the agenda on the back in December. Just so you know, this is a very similar agreement that you approved now 2 years ago, with updates that include bringing on Grafton as a member, who's been an honorary member for about 2 years. They just missed the prior approval that we made on smaller changes in the Assabet agreement, but also it now embeds the language reflecting the law that was passed in 2012. So that needs to be approved and signed by our chair to recognize our agreement with that. And we'll probably talk about this a little bit more when Nancy mentions Tri-Town, but as we go through the budget process, there are opportunities for you as representatives to your towns that to talk about the budget at your advisory or finance meetings, depending on what groups invite you. So, you know, if you are invited and contacted, sometimes we're included, George or myself, make sure that we're aware. We're certainly happy to go with you and contribute however it's appropriate. And just as a plug to our personnel committee, the teachers are indicating they're ready to start. We had tentatively, really a long time ago, talked about Tuesday nights because that was our school committee night and so forth, and we could maybe meet on alternating dates, and it worked for the majority of their group. They proposed a date for January 21st, which is next Tuesday. I don't know if that's going to work, but we should be able to get back, hopefully get back to them after we meet on Thursday.
Great.
So that's my update. And I didn't write about it, but I want to publicly thank the Assabet Valley Collaborative and Vanpool. They were the organizations that came to our rescue for special education transportation. George King, Tracy Conti, our Director of Special Ed, were instrumental in working on an agreement with them very quickly after we had to do some very challenging work legally to essentially get released from our contract, and when the company we were working with went out of business. So kudos to them. They've done an excellent job communicating to parents. They met over the break with parents on Monday before New Year's Eve, and that was very helpful. Parents really appreciate that. We've communicated via school messenger several times. They've written phone calls, and parents are very pleased with the transition. We have about, I think ultimately when everything came to rest and the dust has settled, we have about 15 of the same drivers that we had out of the 22 that we had before. So, which is a nice transition to have the same drivers for the same runs for many of our kids, because change is very difficult. So kudos to both of those organizations and George and Tracy as well for making that happen. Also in my superintendent's report, Jody Specht, our Director of Guidance, and Dr. Graham are here to go over the high school profile for 2013, which is a nice way to brag about our students' accomplishments and our teachers' and administration's work as well. So, Jody, you have the floor.
Can I hand those out first?
I would be happy to.
Thank you. Hey, how you doing? So we have, this is the paper copy that goes out with any applications that we send in paper. We're sending the majority out electronically at this point. So there's a different version that's electronic. It's 3 pages, I think. I reformatted it so it would fit on their screens. More and more colleges are reviewing the entire package electronically. Okay.
I'm not going to stand so very much here.
Okay. Thank you.
So this goes along with every transcript that goes out?
Yes, yes. And or the electronic version has exactly the same information, it just had to be formatted differently. So you can see we have a growing enrollment. MCAS scores stay pretty steady. I have the last 3 years there. The AP results I looked at this year. And one of the things I did was I looked back 5 years, and we've had a 40% increase in the number of exams that have been given. Okay. So last year, 264 kids took 452 exams. And it's a pretty healthy program. Our average score was a 3.87. The Massachusetts average scale was a 3.26. And the total group average score was a 2.87. So
Who's in that group, Jody? When you say the total group?
total group is going to be anybody taking an AP exam,
Anybody at all in the Commonwealth or anybody national?
nationally.
National.
So the state average is a 3.26, which I think is a pretty strong state average,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. And so 91% of our students scored a 3 or higher. And something over half of the graduating class last year took at least one AP exam and scored at least a 3 or higher. Pretty significant. Which comes to the AP Awards. AP Scholars is for a student who has 3 exams with an average of 3 or higher. AP Scholars with Honor is 4 exams with an average of 3.25 or higher. AP Scholars with Distinction is 5 exams with a 3.5 average or higher. And National AP Scholars, which takes my breath away a little bit, is 8 exams with a 4.0 or higher. I don't know how these kids do this, to be honest with you. Pretty intense. When we look up at the top of the other column on National Merit, this is, National Merit is the test, the qualifying test is the PSAT taken in the junior year. So while we have a number of sophomores who take it, it's not their qualifying exam. When they take the PSAT as a junior, that's the qualifying exam. There's about 1.5 million students who take this in something like 22,000 schools. A student is commended, a commended student, that's roughly 34,000 students of that 1.5 million, about the top 5%. Semi-finalists is about 16,000, and they cut this out state by state. So it's the top half of 1% per state. So in Massachusetts, the scores that you need to become a semi-finalist are higher than they are in some other states. I didn't look it up this year, but in years past when I've looked it up, Massachusetts has tended to be in the top 3 states for PSAT scores. And quite a number of the semi-finalists become finalists, which means that, and become scholars. I took the scholars out. It's hard to get the scholars data from National Merit, but a lot of our kids who are finalists do end up with awards. The awards with National Merit are not heavy on money. It's the prestige that goes with it. When we look at the SATs from last year, and these are the final tests that the student in the graduating class took, even though they may have had higher scores in their junior year test, if they take them in senior year, the way College Board reports is on the final test the student takes. When you look at our distribution, you can see how we're weighted over 500, which is the average. Our 6-year average for critical reading is a 560, for math, 580, and for writing, a 554. So you can see we hold pretty steady. And that was just under 95% of the class took the SAT. That's what those statistics are. When we look at the historic mean, I've begun reporting the middle 50th percentile It's in the small print over to the right. That's how most colleges are reporting their SAT bands these days. So our middle 50th percentile for critical reading, 480 to 620, and total group, and this would be nationally and any of the international students taking it as well, 420 to a 570. And again, in math, you see similar numbers where our middle 50th is 500 to 650, and nationally, 430 to 600. SAT 2 subjects are declining as a requirement at college, but we still have a number of students taking them. Math 2Cs, 33, biology, 24, chemistry, 32, and strong scores there. But again, fewer students are taking these because fewer colleges are requiring them.
Jody, can I ask you a quick question?
Uh-huh.
These are the scores for the SAT, but do we not typically share the ACT because it's not as widely used?
It's not that it's not as widely used, it's that it's not as widely taken. We still have so few kids who take it. It's growing. We've been recommending kids take both the ACT and the SAT in the spring of junior year, see which one they do better on, and retest in that. But the East Coast bias has always been for the SAT. And so the numbers are still, I think, too small to really present as a profile of our school.
Do you know, not to quiz you, just question,
Uh-huh.
do you know how we are performing on the ACT versus the state, or if the state doesn't really utilize it, the rest of the country, the Midwest especially?
Well, it's probably going to be lower, Lorraine, because I would say it's higher in science. When I think through our kids do very well, and it's one of the reasons why we're recommending it. They do very well in the science portion of the ACT. Oftentimes, a student will take the SAT, not do as well, and then try the ACT. But if they take the SAT and they do well, they don't then go sign up for the ACT.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So I haven't sat down. The times I've looked at it, I've thought, yeah, this isn't really representative.
Okay. Thanks.
It's interesting data to look at, but in terms of a profile for the colleges, I wouldn't,
There's not enough there.
there's not enough to really
Yeah.
say this is what we're about.
Yep, that makes
You
sense.
know? Colleges accepting our students in the last 4 years. Schools primarily out of the area are going to look at this, see what we're about, what our whole student body looks like. And on the back, we go through and we let the colleges know what our most rigorous curriculum looks like. So year by year, if there's changes, if I go back through and try to make sure we've captured what was available for this graduating class to take as the most rigorous course. And then, of course, we highlight the EMT program and the special internship, dual enrollment, and if there's any recent recognitions, I like to put those on as well. Some schools are coming out with multi-page, 3, 4, 5-page profiles. I've seen them more than that. I think that bogs down at the data, and I'm not sure that college admissions folks are really going to dig in that much. I think this helps to put the kids into context. They understand that Neshoba is a very rigorous school. So if I'm coming from Neshoba, my transcript has been formed in this pool. Does that make sense? So, does anyone have questions on this? This is redone every fall for the class. Mm-hmm. Nancy?
Since this, a couple of things. One, maybe this is an appropriate forum to bring up class rank, because you're talking about grading and weighted grades versus unweighted grades. I know it's been an ongoing discussion for a number of years, whether or not we should have class rank. We currently do. And I'm not sure that everybody fully believes that that's the way to go. And I also want to sort of just throw out there class rank as it pertains to transcripts, and does it belong on the transcript? It's currently there. And,
So that's actually a pretty timely question. That's something that I've been talking about with the guidance department for a while now. And so one of the things that's important to me with a transcript is that any transcript that we send to a college or university is a very honest reflection of a student's coursework and how they've done academically at school, that it's very transparent. At the same time, we want to make sure that we are positioning our students in as positive and competitive a way as possible as they apply to some very competitive schools. And so one of the conversations we've been having, one of the questions that I've been asking is, does having the class rank on the transcript accomplish that for us? Does that help to position our students as competitively as possible? And I think I'm becoming convinced that the answer to that is no. And I'll give you an example. One of the things that Jody alluded to is that we are a top-tier high school where we have a very large percentage of kids who are doing very well, who are very academically successful. And so you might have a kid who's in the 25th or 30th percentile in Neshoba, who at most high schools might be in the 10th percentile. But because we have so many strong students at Neshoba, that information about class rank may not accurately reflect. I mean, you have to dig in a little bit. So we report information that the colleges and universities know our reputation, so when they know a kid is coming from Neshoba, that they know that they're a very competitive student. And, we talk about our GPA ranges, so you can put it in context. But I'm not sure that putting class rank on the transcript is advantageous for all of our students. And so what I am planning to do is, starting next year, to move away from putting class rank specifically on the transcript. One of the things that we do as a school is, when kids apply to colleges and universities, is that we fill out a school recommendation. So the guidance counselor who's known that student for years, in addition to teacher recommendations for individual teachers who can speak to the work in classes, guidance counselors, so Jody has a caseload, she'll write a recommendation from the school for that student and try to capture that student in the broad range of things that they've done. That is an appropriate place where I believe we can capture class rank information if that would help to position our school, our students competitively. So whether we put class rank on the transcript or not, we are still capable of computing a class rank if we need to. For example, there are some scholarship organizations that won't specifically want a class rank. I think military academies also specifically want class rank. So whether we put it on or don't put it on the transcript, we're able to provide it if we need to provide it. But I believe that it will help to position all of our students more competitively if we do not put class rank on the transcript, but instead can provide that information if we need to through the school recommendation, if that's something, if we've got a kid who's in the top 5%, that might be something that we want to specifically mention where that's going to help the student. So my plan is to move away from putting the class rank on the transcript and instead to position that within the school recommendation if that's something that we see as advantageous for the student. Yes?
I thought I got a complaint last year from a parent because they couldn't obtain class rank.
So when I say class rank, I'm not talking about a number. I'm sorry, I should have I'm talking about what we don't report a number. So we don't say that this kid was number 57 in their class. Instead, we report ranges. So we report, I think it's top 2%, top 5%, top 10%.
Deciles.
And then deciles, and then at a certain point, I think we switched to quartiles. So we don't report class rank as a number. Instead, we report ranges. And there are there are arguments for and against the idea of giving every kid his or her individual class rank. I philosophically am opposed to the idea for a variety of reasons. One is that we're talking about kids who are performing at very high levels, and you can see very slight incremental differences between individual kids. The difference between, say, 25 and 50 in class rank, we're talking about very small numbers. I think that it can also at times promote a somewhat unhealthy culture in that it's about just trying to beat the kid next to you as opposed to trying to maximize your own performance, and also to try to pick the courses that you think are going to be most advantageous for you, not just in terms of what your class rank is going to be. I don't want a kid saying, well, I'd really like to take this course, but it's an unweighted course, and instead I need to get one more AP class in that I'm not really interested in taking because I need to make sure I'm, keeping my class rank as high as possible. So I'm sure that there are people who will disagree with what I just said. again, my goal is to try to position our kids as positively and competitively as possible to get into schools, and we've had a really good track record of being able to do that. In my opinion, not focusing in on a specific number, but instead reporting ranges and reporting that in a way that's most advantageous for our students is what I feel.
Okay, I was just confused because of that statement.
Yep.
Okay, so
Nope, great question.
And this is something we've reached out to the competitive high schools in Massachusetts. I actually pulled the Boston rankings lists, and the majority of schools with whom we are competing at the level that we are competing have moved away from reporting rank.
Jody, just curiosity, who are those schools that you consider us competitors?
What I did
Oh.
was, the last time we were in the Boston ranking,
Uh-huh.
the top 75 schools. I pulled those, or I think maybe that's 50 or, I don't remember the number that is, and then added in some of the very selective privates like Milton Academy, Belmont Hill, places like that. And people are looking, and they have the same problem we do. A number of years ago, we moved away from exact rank placement because kids would be separated by thousandths of a point, you know? That's noise in the system, really. And, you know, you look at the number of kids taking AP courses and the rigor that's in this high school, and artificially stacking them, I think, clouds the picture. And so I have, if you want to know those high schools, I certainly have them back on my desk someplace and can pull them out. It's not 100%, certainly, some still do.
Are they looking just at the academic component of the school experience?
Who?
I can go look up the article, I'm just wondering if you know off the top of your head. I'll look it up myself, but,
The Boston Globe rankings, yes.
Okay.
They're just looking academically.
okay.
And I think a heavy piece of that is AP scores, SAT scores, things like that.
Okay,
Your
thank
objective
you.
measures.
did you call any of the colleges that we tend to mostly get recruited by? And I know that they always look for rigor and they want to see rigor, but did anyone, other than the military academy, say
Well,
anything?
some colleges will use the GPA graph to estimate a rank. Some colleges, you know, I think, and in that regard, I think we advantage a student by not having that on there. Say I'm in the 11th percentile, okay? If I've applied to a school that is busy advertising that 95% of our class comes from the top 10% of their class, you know, and 3% comes from the top 5% of the class kind of thing, then me being in the 11th percent, which on our transcript is going to show us the second decile, is going to give them pause to think. Now, if only a quarter of the transcripts coming across, or competitive applicants coming across that admissions
Absolutely.
person's desk have rank, it's being noticed. There's not a lot of schools that are reporting that, but if there's
They're
any
putting it
schools
on
that
the
our
report.
kids that are applying to, and I have faith that we can advantage the kids when I'm looking at a college list and I know that this student is in the top decile, and I think that, or the top second decile, I can say in my thing, if we ranked, this student would be high up in this area of the class. They're going to see that from a GPA chart on here anyhow, but it'll be positioned positively. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think
Statistics.
right, and on the other, on the end that we're not, you know, not the high end, our kids are doing great, and maybe somebody falls into the 6th decile, and it's still a very strong transcript, but now it looks like it's the second half of the class. And technically it is, but maybe by, again, those thousandths of a point. So, again, given the landscape of college admissions out there, I think it's the best for the students for us to move away from this.
Totally agree. I think it needs to, if that's the direction the high school goes in, it needs to be clear so that when the students are responding on the common application, if their school ranks or not, they know what the answer is.
Right. When Dr. Graham says we can still rank, I was twitching a little bit there.
I was too.
I say lots of things that make you twitch.
It has to be black or white. I mean,
We don't rank.
we don't rank.
We don't rank.
And then it has to be totally clear to everybody, otherwise there's going to be problems.
Can I compute a rank for somebody applying to a military academy or the Coca-Cola scholarship? Yes, I can go in and do that, but we don't rank the class. Okay.
It just needs to be clear.
And in fact, I would, probably say historically, looking at GPAs, we would position it so that they know we don't rank, and our policy will be, and it will say on the profile, we do not rank. So I agree, I wouldn't want that,
Excellent.
yeah.
And as long as I have your ear. I'm going to just
something about this here.
plug in for also taking off the transcript, all test scores.
Well, now that with the new common application, kids are asked, do you want to enter your scores? And they can enter scores for AP classes, for SATs, ACTs, things like that. So now there's a reporting vehicle so that the college can see that. And I think absolutely those AP scores don't need to be on there.
So, yeah, so currently on the transcript, we have reported if a student took AP tests, then we reported the scores that they got on that AP test. Again, we want to make sure students are able to position themselves as positively as possible. That's also redundant information now that that's something that's asked for in the common application. The common application specifically says, tell us your AP test scores. So students can put that in the common application. And again, let's say there's a student who took an AP test, they didn't enjoy the class that much, they got a 3 on it. I want it to be up to the student to decide how they want to position that to a college or university. So I'm also planning on taking AP scores off of the transcript for next year.
That's great.
Again, it's all about, we want to be transparent, we want to be honest, we want to understand what the general trends are with similar peer schools, but the overall goal is that we want to position our students as positively and competitively as possible so that they can go to the schools that they want to go to.
I just have a question, I don't know if it's really related or not, but how are students selected for the National Honor Society?
So there is an initial GPA requirement that students have to have. Once, for students who meet that initial GPA requirement, this is also something that we've got conversations going on in the building right now. Currently, we use a non-weighted GPA to determine that. So there are 2 different types of GPA. There's non-weighted GPA, which is you take all the classes that you took and you average the GPA on a 4-point scale. Correct me if I say anything that's wrong. And a weighted GPA, so you can see it on the profile, where we have a weighted GPA that gives more points to courses that are of greater rigor as identified by our AP Honors Accelerated or CP scale. So an A in an Honors or an AP class is worth 5 points on that scale, whereas an A in a CP course would be worth 4 points on that scale. So we currently, there is an initial invitation, and it's to students who have met, and I think it's a 3.25 is the GPA requirement, and that's an unweighted GPA. So it does not differentiate between the levels of courses students have taken.
And that's every student who has that GPA?
Correct.
Is that
Every
right?
student who has that 3.25, and I think it's a cumulative GPA.
At the middle of sophomore year and at the semester break for sophomores, and at the semester break for juniors.
Are then invited, and then there are a number of, then they have to submit what's essentially an application, and they have to talk about a wide range of characteristics. It's leadership, service, character, and citizenship. Thank you. Scholarship is the 5th, and the scholarship criteria is met by the GPA. So then they have to indicate that they've met the criteria in those other areas. There's a 5-member faculty council. There are co-advisors of the National Honor Society, and then there's a 5-member faculty council. And per the bylaws, the 5-member faculty council is the group that makes decisions about whether students are then accepted into the National Honor Society or not. But then students will also get feedback and recommendations from other teachers and potentially from outside people around leadership and character and citizenship and things like that. So there are a couple different interesting questions. One is, should you use a weighted versus a non-weighted GPA? And what should the GPA requirement be set at? So I've actually asked the National Honor Society advisors to collect information from other schools around what other schools use, whether they use a weighted or a non-weighted GPA, and to get a sense of where we, I think it should be driven by our own philosophy and by our own values, but I think it's always valuable to understand where we are, what other people tend to use. We have a pretty significant number of students who get into the National Honor Society every year, which is wonderful. But I think it's always appropriate to review practices. We adopted a new set of core values at the high school. Achieve is one of those core values, and I asked actually the advisors for all of our clubs and activities, in light of our core values, are there any changes that they think would be appropriate to make in terms of their requirements and expectations for members? So the National Honor Society advisors are currently in the Faculty Council. The Faculty Council is the group that's empowered to make changes to the bylaws, and the GPA criteria is part of that. They're currently reviewing that and whether that's something that we should consider adjusting in some way.
But beyond the GPA, it's kind of subjective, right? I mean, you apply and it's kind of like...
We try to make it as objective as possible. In other words, it's not just, okay, you did something for leadership. It's that we try to have a set of criteria within each of those different categories, so that you can distinguish between different levels of, what's kind of the threshold for leadership that you need to have displayed in order to have met the criteria. So we try to make it objective within that. And we've got, a number of different members on the Faculty Council, so it's not just one person making an individual decision. So we try to structure it as much as we possibly can.
I happen to have strong opinions about this too, and Perry knows. And I've done a little bit of my own research and contacted 10 area high schools that I consider to be competitive or comparable to our high school. And out of the 10 schools, there was only one that did not use a weighted GPA, which I think we should be using. And that school doesn't weight their GPA ever. So that's the only reason why they don't use a weighted GPA. So just thought I'd share my findings. I really think that it should be a weighted GPA, only because I think we're penalizing the kids who are taking the challenging courses by not allowing them to even apply to National Honor Society. So that, absolutely.
And please feel free to, I don't remember if you shared that specifically with me or not, but please feel free to share that specific information.
I did.
Okay, because I want to make sure that gets into the hands of the Faculty Council. And also, I did pass along to the advisors to the National Honor Society as well. There were some emails that went around amongst the Midland, Wachusett league high school principals around GPA and what people use for GPA, and so I passed that along to them as well. So again, I think it should be driven by our own school philosophy, and there are reasons I think for and against weighted versus unweighted GPA, but I do think it's valuable to have a sense of how other people make those decisions.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding the GPA first. So the student who's in a college prep class is getting all A's.
That's a 4.0.
4.0 would get an invitation.
On an unweighted GPA, that is
Okay.
a 4.0, and also that would be a weighted GPA.
And then they'd have to do the whole other piece to it. So then
Absolutely.
a student who's taking 2 AP classes and gets 2 B's in those?
That would be a 3.0 on an unweighted GPA.
So they would not get the initial invitation.
It's not based on just 2 individual classes, it's based on...
No, I know, but I'm just saying if that's the class bringing them down,
But
is the 2 AP classes.
yes, so one can make the argument that taking more rigorous courses can penalize you when considering National Honor Society. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of ways in which it helps you, but by using a non-weighted GPA, it's not considering that the rigor of the course is not taken into consideration for National Honor Society criteria.
And you're reconsidering that.
Yes, that's what we're in the process of looking at right now. And I want to be careful to say, while I kind of play a role in it, ultimately, it's the Faculty Council are the ones who are empowered through the National Honor Society. And I say all this because I've been down the road in previous schools around making sure that we're following the accurate process, the correct process, and the principal is appropriate. So the Faculty Council, those are the people who are empowered to make changes to the bylaws, but I am I am the one who has asked them to specifically look at this and try to pass along information, make sure that they understand different perspectives on it, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that getting voted on or changed, like when is that?
The faculty council will make a decision as to what, if they choose to amend the criteria, then they do that internally. They vote on whether or not they choose to amend the criteria. And they're currently in the process of reviewing it. I think you are giving them some information about weighted versus non-weighted GPA sometime next week or so.
Thank you both for
Yep.
coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're still on.
What's that? I'm still on. I got one more thing so in your packet, you have an update on my goals. Around here, we're doing the formative assessments reports for our teachers and administrators. So I've provided you with some information about activities that have been going on relative specific to my goals, not necessarily broader around the elements of the evaluation tool itself. So I just wanted to share, and I'll highlight a few of them. I can get to it myself. So. Hang on for just a second. Apologize.
I'm trying to get to this.
Thank you. Faster. Paperwork. So the four goals were shared and approved back in September. By April 2014, the district will have a plan to address response to intervention for a student whose cognition is on target but can't or won't engage. We do have a DCAP plan, which is a requirement by law. We review that annually. Here are a list of activities that are new just during this course of the year that we are trying to look at. Some are very recent events that have started to report out. For example, I think one of the things that has been exciting, I wrote a grant in cooperation with Dr. Graham and Director of Special Education Tracy Conti for a very small grant, $7,200, to help look at intervention at our high school. So we were awarded that grant, and so we're looking at ways that we can provide access for kids who, for a variety of reasons, aren't performing as well as we'd like, to find a software that would provide them practice or extension activities for those also who miss time for medical reasons, for example, whatever it is that's preventing them from being successful in the classroom. We're also looking at, and this is pretty in-depth, we had a study of our school psychologists and team chairs and the work that they do. This was pretty comprehensive. It's a commitment we've made as part of membership of the Assabet Valley Collaborative, where we do peer reviews. We've just started it. Last year, I believe we did, there was another district that did the speech and language. And essentially what it is members from each of the districts commits time to go in and help school systems look at their work around a particular set of questions that have been shared with them. So we looked at our school psychologists and who happen to be our team chairs, and their ability to be essentially collaborative with schools in looking at student performance beyond just their role as evaluators. Because part of a good evaluation is really knowing and understanding the child, and then obviously the follow-up that occurs afterwards. So that's been very helpful. We're going to actually be talking a little bit more during the budget process because of some of the data that came out of that. One of the things that we're also looking at is enrichment, because it's not just students don't disengage just because they can't do the work. Sometimes it's because they're not interested in doing the work. So we're looking at enrichment in a variety of ways. We do have a new enrichment coordinator and she's been looking at embedding enrichment into our extended learning program after school, but also our week events that happen in February and April, and long-term looking at maybe doing something more in the summer as well. So we've done a lot, I think, under that goal. We continue to look at the space issues at the high school, which is a major part of Goal 2. We have started our space study task force. We have our capital plans, which our director of facilities works with the 3 towns in making sure that they are kept abreast of those elements, both the current year and the future years. We're trying to share more information. One of the things that came out of the space study committee, for example, was does everybody know where everybody's debt payoffs are, so that we understand when you can take on a new project or might be more open to it. So we're going to be collecting that information and putting that together. I'm starting to look at what our green initiatives could be. We started a couple of years ago with recycling at the high school, and we had a very active environmental club there. We're trying to resurrect that a bit, and also look at other green initiatives that would be across the district. Saving energy is one that we're really trying to look at.
You keep saying we, who's on these committees?
So the Space Study Task Force is, there's a number of people. It's community people, capital planning, Board of Selectmen. It was the appointment that the school committee approved.
So there's a,
No, but there were volunteers who came forward, and
We
and
approved
those
the
people.
creation of the task
Correct,
force.
creation of the task force, right.
so is there a committee, or is it they just kind of meet?
No, it's a committee.
So there's a list of people?
I'll get that. Actually, it's on, there's a site already created on our website, and it has the list in there.
And there's one for this, the Green Initiative also?
No, not yet, but that is something we're going to look to putting together, and look to try to figure out how to do that.
Okay, and then the enrichment one, is that just going to be taken over by the new coordinator, or is that also?
She's spearheading it. We don't have a task force for that.
Okay, so the only task force we have so far is the space one?
Right. And in Goal 3, under professional culture, we've been looking at, obviously, the teacher evaluation, educator evaluation, which has been very time-consuming to do it well. What I think the best part, we have a very active committee that meets monthly. We've had lots of conversations. We had an online conversation today about issues that have arisen because we have this deadline of these assessment reports that are due tomorrow, and how to collect evidence so that teachers feel comfortable that they're sharing things in a productive way. The technology has been also a new initiative. Baseline Edge is the tool that we've adopted, and it's not come easy in terms of all of the issues on their end where they were designing it on the as we were implementing it, and so it's been bumpy, but it's coming together now.
Who was designing it as you were implementing?
The company Baseline Edge.
Is there an alternative one that we could explore?
That really was the best one. There were a few others that we looked at that just didn't have the polish or the interconnectedness. We were looking for something that could not only look at the teacher evaluation components, but also eventually be our data dashboard for student evaluations. And this is the only one that really had that. And it's coming together now. I think it was a smaller startup. I think they grew too fast. And the software itself, I think, works very well. It's their response to tailor it to us that's been a bit challenging. And maybe on our side, a misunderstanding that they weren't going to tailor it as much as we thought they were in the salesmanship of it. But they are turning that around because they realize everybody wants it to be tailored to the individual district.
We might want to add that to the Space Task Force site. There isn't a list of members. It's
Okay.
just the
I thought it was
agenda
up
and some data.
Okay. So, yeah.
Is anybody on our group in any of these groups, or should we be in any of these groups?
So on the task force, Maureen was in attendance and Lorraine?
So you're in
Yes,
the space?
yes. We've had one meeting, it was kind of an intro, get-to-know-you meeting.
Our next meeting is the 22nd.
The idea was, and I think it makes sense to have the people who are on the Finance and Facilities Committee be on the task force committee.
We used to have facilities and finance separate, and there wasn't a lot going on building-wise, and that's why you combined them. Is that, do we want to keep it that way?
think for the
Especially if you're
time
going to be
being-
aggressively going after these SOIs?
I think for the time being, because the SOIs really is an administrative function, we just have to complete them. So, I mean, I think for the time being, they're really, it's good work for the facilities/finance committee. I mean, I think it's meaningful work. So overall, in the professional culture, what I see happening already is a lot of conversation, very good conversation around student learning. We have a monthly meeting of administrators on a seminar on evaluation. So there's a lot of good conversation about what we're seeing, and we're reading each other's evaluations and trying to understand how to present information in a professional way. And family community engagement, this is something that we always try to adhere to and pay attention to is district communication. We're trying to use School Messenger more, not only out of my office, but out of the schools, whether it be email or phones. I am beginning a cable show. It's in development now, and I'm meeting with my producers on Thursday. So it's coming.
What's it called?
No working title?
No working title yet. Well, several working titles, but none that I'm going to share.
Would it be music?
Huh? There may be music, absolutely, for the intro. Yeah,
You should
absolutely.
invite like the local band.
No, but you won't be singing.
I might be. I might need to be if I have to do more than 10 minutes. So.
When's your first one?
Pardon me?
When's your first one?
Well, like I say, we have our first meeting on Thursday, so I'm hoping to get one off the ground for February. You ready? And then last, we are committed, obviously, given everything that we heard previously from our high school, to be a level 1 school district. That moniker comes when all schools are level 1, and we do have 3 schools that are literally within points of being level 1s, and so we're not there yet. What we're looking at right now is trying to get our second data point for the year in terms of the district assessments that we look at to indicate whether or not we're moving in the right direction. And so I'll know better by April where we are, hopefully for essentially what will be in next September. April is kind of an odd month to be reporting that or meeting that goal.
I have questions on this. First of all, have we dropped to a level 2?
No, we've
Or have
actually.
we gone up from a level 3?
So, no. So we've at those schools, we've always been level 2.
We've
and-
always been a level 2 at Sawyer?
We've always been a level 2.
It has to do with improvement.
It has to do with growth.
So you have to keep that in mind.
That's
It's
right.
not like we're failing.
That's right.
It's like we're already this good. It's hard to go
remember
up.
that from the last
So-
round.
Just
Okay.
want to be clear about that.
Yeah, it's good that you do that, because it's a
Right.
question. That's good.
So the 2 schools that have moved to level 1 from level 3 are Mary Rowlandson and the Burbank Middle School. So they both have moved in that direction in the last 2 years.
So how are we making sure that Sawyer can adopt, well, although the disparity isn't as great, but how are we making sure that Sawyer, sorry, selfishly, I'm happy for all the other schools to be there too.
We have all so the area was primarily math, and so we added some focused intervention there with a math interventionist, and we're looking at that as one initiative around that, and several other pieces around our math curriculum in terms of materials that we bought teachers to teach the new frameworks. So we're looking at those pieces. Again, we're within points. I mean, Florence Sawyer was within maybe 2 points in terms of their the movement is about growth, which appropriately it should be, but in some of these cases, it's challenging to make that growth, but clearly there are level one schools and we can be level one, so I have no doubt that we'll make it.
And I have another question. This is like questioning the Holy Grail. I'm gonna do it because what the hell? When we talk about, it's okay. When we talk about
The
450.
FCC will be after us.
No, that one you can use. When we talk about,
But all the kids watching.
Right.
oh yeah, it's all the kids.
All the kids watching.
They're staying up late
Yeah.
tonight. When we talk about being 451st out of 2,500 schools, and I know we are proud of that.
Right.
But that's 18%, right? So that's the,
Top 20%. Right. So, I believe it was Jody who mentioned this, you know, when you look at, for example, Boston Magazine's ranking, which obviously when we make it, we're very proud of ourselves, but a big part of that is the number of AP courses that you offer and the number of students who are taking them and the delta. So it's not, to be clear, it's not how many are taking them, but how many you've added to
Right.
them. We already have a good number, so we're not adding to that. We've had conversations about that. I mean, I think there are places where we could be adding to that number. But in order to make that list, because it too is about a growth piece, you know, we've got to be adding some courses that are AP classes.
so
or
this
adding
ranking
students.
is truly about the number of AP courses that are, what
It's
are
a
they?
big, it's a big component of the Boston ranking one. It's a big piece of the U.S. News
Yeah.
reports. There's also a piece in Title I on the U.S. News Report one. I'm not able to say specifically all the components for the Newsweek one, but AP is part of that.
And I know,
It's
and I
like
know,
percentiles too, though, just like they were saying with the kids. We're talking about hundreds of different,
Exactly.
you know, like it looks like Lancaster says 51, Stowe 47, and Bolton 29. It looks like there's quite a bit of a disparity, but when you look at the actual numbers, there isn't. It's like we're talking about a point here and a point there.
I'm not really concerned about that. I respect what you're saying, and my comment isn't to,
No, I'm just saying it's
but
like.
I'm more concerned about why, I don't know, 18%? I would be like really psyched if you said 12%. And I know we're getting there, that's the goal.
And believe me, you know, as you look at I'm not sure if you're looking at the WCVB site, because they rank the towns by the schools in those towns. So Bolton got the advantage of having Neshoba Regional High School in it, even though that's from Lancaster and Stowe as well.
That's funny.
So we're ranked 29th by that particular chart of accounts.
So that's all the
what's that?
schools and the high school for Bolton. And then
Well,
Lancaster
they don't know.
just their,
They don't know how to differentiate
Oh.
because they don't know which students are Bolton and Lancaster. They're looking at numbers, data. So, you know, that's a misleading. So all regional schools were treated in the same way in that regard. I was just on, because as I was writing this, I was on the Boston.com version where it has this new chart where you can do your dream school. Well, you look at their top, I think it was 15 schools as their dream schools. None of them are in suburban communities. That's just a statement.
Yeah.
So it's all about what data points you want to look at to make that determination.
Well, right, it's only as good as the reporting outlet, I get that. I know, I have such an issue with these rankings.
I know, it's hard.
It's
So-
just we're so subjected to someone else's, and they're not necessarily educators.
Right,
And that's where, you know,
That's
all we have.
Rankings and everything.
everything, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I could go on and on. College rankings are ridiculous. I mean, and media.
yeah, but Boston.com, I mean, it's great for our press, for the community, but Boston.com is not, I don't think of them as, you know, an educator.
Right, exactly.
So, okay.
But, you know, they had to pull something together, and that's how they decided to, you know, that's what they've decided to use. So I think, you know, as we look at this data, obviously we celebrate it when it meets our criteria about celebrating it. but we also take a look at it seriously when we think we need to. And I think certainly the MCAS, the accountability system for Massachusetts, that's going to stay. That's the goal that we really should be looking at and paying attention to, because we can be level 1. There's no reason why we're not. So it's been a busy fall, and it's really, we haven't hit the 90th day yet.
I know, 86
So-
or something, I
Right.
looked the other day.
So
It's almost
the
right
year is
around
not
it,
half
it's almost
over.
right.
I mean, in terms of education, school education, obviously for work that we do, it's half over. So that's a quick update, and those will be things that I'll report out more in preparation for the evaluation in April, so that it's done according to our timeline that we've now set.
Great.
That's it.
If there are any questions, we'll move on to the subcommittee reports, starting with the woman who's been waiting so patiently, Nishida for the high school.
I hope you all had a wonderful New Year. It's been a long time since our last meeting. There's been a lot going on at Neshoba this past month, but this year has been off to a great start. In athletics, the girls' basketball team is off to a great start, and they are undefeated on the season so far with a 7-0 record. The girls host Shrewsbury tomorrow night with freshmen at 4, JV at 5:30, and varsity at 7 p.m. The boys' basketball team is doing well with a 5-3 record and will host Groton Dunstable on Friday night for a league matchup with freshmen at 4, JV at 5:30, and varsity at 7. Our boys' ice hockey team is 4-2-2 and playing well with a tough schedule. The team hosts Oakmont on Saturday night at 8:40 p.m. at the New England Sports Center. We have 2 students playing for the Algonquin girls ice hockey team this year. The co-op team includes Algonquin, Hudson, Marlborough, and Neshoba, and is currently 6-2-1. Over the weekend, the team was able to play at the DCU Center against Shrewsbury. Swimming is still searching for their first win of the season, but the team is improving each day. Many student athletes are breaking school records and setting personal best times for themselves. The indoor track teams are also doing well. The boys are 1-1 and the girls are 2-0 in the league. Neshoba runs against Westboro tomorrow afternoon in Fitchburg. Our alpine and cross-country ski teams each have had one race. The cross-country team placed 6th and the alpine team placed 3rd. The cross-country team is racing today and alpine will race on Thursday. The wrestling is currently 7-1 on the season. The team won the Marlborough Early Bird Tournament, placed 5th at the Framingham Holiday Tournament, 3rd place at the Merrimack Tournament, and placed 4th at our own DeMayo Duels Tournament. We host Quabbin tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. The class play competitions were last week, and the senior class won for their second time in a row with their performance of removing the glove. The Central Mass Regional Student Advisory Council meeting was December 3rd at Hudson High School. The main focus of this meeting was to basically just divide up all the representatives into different kind of like subcommittees to tackle different topics that we're going to cover this year. The group that I and the other representative from Neshoba, Talia Kirschbaum, are in is about digital literacy. So, and the other group was college readiness. Our objective was to learn more about the accessibility of the wireless network and digital devices in our school and gauge how it is compared to other schools in our region. Talia and I have been working on getting data, researching the district and Neshoba's policies on internet use and personal devices and things like that. And we plan on meeting with the Director of Technology soon and discussing the details as well as the underlying technology aspects, the approach to technology rather in our school. With this information, we'll fill out like a generalized survey and try to see if there's any areas of improvement either in our school or any places that we can help out other schools in kind of approaching this topic. I'll keep you all posted, and our next meeting is in February.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Maureen with the finance.
Since I missed meeting,
We approved the warrants and we discussed the upcoming February 1st meeting and the process for that, and that's it. And we missed you.
Thank you. Policy, we have one more for first, I guess we call it a second reading. Because we brought it before, the group once before, the student code of conduct, which will be coming up in new business. We have a couple of others that we're working on, but they're not ready for the whole group yet, so we won't be talking about them tonight. And that's really it for policy, I think, unless I'm missing anything. Personnel Subcommittee, we are meeting this Thursday morning at 8 o'clock to sort of finalize the plan and strategies. Did you not know that?
I think I did, but I.
Okay. You can't. Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
We've got to get,
We'll have to talk about that.
unless there's another date we can do and still post.
Okay,
Maybe we can meet after the meeting.
yeah. Let's try to resolve that before we leave, if we can. Sped Pack, there's nothing going on that I've heard of anyway. No. ESBC, I don't think there's anything new. Right, Lynn?
Cancel the meeting, that's it.
Okay. NRHS Space Study Task Force, Michael?
So our next meeting is January 22nd, and we will be, I believe we're going to meet in the Houghton Building. No, we're going to be here. And it will be televised, and so we'll be posting an agenda soon.
And you have as many members as you wanted, or how's that going?
There are a couple of seats that we'd like to have filled. I think where we don't have quite the membership, we've had people say they're going to share, like we don't have a board of selectmen from a couple of towns, but we have capital planning, so they're going to report back to those groups. I think there are a couple of school council seats or parent seats that we need to shake the trees and see if we can get some more members.
Okay. And, but somebody's working on that? I mean,
Yeah, I'm trying to work with the
Okay.
principals for that.
great.
Do you want the principals to be responsible for that, or do you want us to help, or not?
Let me do one more reach out to the principals for that and see where they are. Ideally, it was going to be somebody from school council, so
Right.
that there would be a nice connection between the
Not
middle
as a
school and high school.
Bolton person who wants to do it.
Yeah, I think I've got a Bolton person. I think I'm just waiting for Stowe. Somebody, would be a parent rep from Stowe.
Lynn, are you interested?
I need to just get, what's that?
I thought Ross Perry was on.
He is for capital planning.
Okay.
But, and I have names for people who are at the high school, but they didn't come the first time, so hopefully they come in the second time.
Well, how often do you meet?
I think we're looking at once a month for now. It's not firm, but we're looking at Wednesdays.
That's if nobody else from school shows up.
Okay. Keep you posted.
Okay, and last but not least, on updates is the Tri-Town update. We've had 2 Tri-Town meetings since our last meeting, I believe. I attended both of them, as did Michael and a bunch of other people, Maureen, Lorraine, George, thank you. So the update from the Tri-Town meeting is that there's considerable interest, at least among the advisory or select boards of the various towns, that we communicate as much as possible with them, particularly if there are capital expenditures involved in anything that we happen to be working on. there was talk about creating a advisory committee to the school committee. I don't think that that will be taking place. I'm not exactly sure how that has been left, other than that we have all promised to communicate as best possible. I think the message that we need to make sure we hear is that we need to keep attending Tri-Town meetings and making sure that we make an effort to get there, because the meetings are less productive if we don't have enough people there to represent the information that they need. So as just a reminder, they happen once a month and it rotates the town, and we try to have representatives attend when it's in their town. Yes.
So when you say there's lack of representation, you mean people that are on some of the subcommittees, or?
Just somebody from
Just in
that
general?
town, probably, just in general.
Well,
You go to all of
there's-
them, right?
Well,
Mostly.
I'm trying not to go to all of them, but recently I have been.
Thank you.
The Tri-Town meetings, from every constituency that shows up, I think there's a problem with attendance. I mean, there aren't always a lot of selectmen, there aren't always a lot of advisory or finance committee members, there aren't always a lot of school committee members. It's hard. It seems like the meetings come up frequently, the agendas are short, and sometimes,
Redundant.
it's sometimes very redundant, sometimes we talk about the same things, and I guess we have to keep enthusiasm up and keep showing up so that everybody thinks that, that they're staying informed. Reiterated at both meetings that all of our meetings are public and open, and please come and join us anytime if they're feeling a lack of information, to visit our websites, to come to our budget workshop, because everything that we do is public and open, and they're welcome to come hear what's going on if they want more information. I don't know if anybody else who's been at any of the Tri-Towns wants to add to my update, but
Watch on TV? You look great.
thanks.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. All right, well, moving along to new business. Preschool tuition, I guess, George, is that your?
Yeah, can we just take them both together since the
Sure.
the was read that way?
Yeah.
Written that way. So every couple of years, every year really, but we've been trying to keep the changes. I think every couple of years we cost out the best we can at our preschool and kindergarten tuition-based programs. It's a little tricky to do because there's so many elements that go into it. Some of the costs are fixed, and we had to, put it anyway. So in fairness, we don't generally add them in. So we generally, what we've done is utilize personnel costs to judge the cost of the program, because obviously other things would be here already, because the half-day kindergarten would be here. So the heat, the lights, and the things that sometimes you put into operating costs of a program really wouldn't be appropriate to put into here for that reason. We used to do it differently using actual teacher salaries, but in reality that doesn't really smooth the cost of the program, because if a teacher happened to retire and change, the difference in cost could be substantial, and it wouldn't really reflect the overall cost of the program. So we used average teacher salary from our EOI report and average assistant teacher salary from our budget process to cost out personnel. And additionally, I've added 22.77% benefit to payroll costs, as this is reflective of our overall budget. As I explained now, I did add in the facility or per pupil supply costs, because we owe these people at least a half day of kindergarten anyway, so those items would be there under the general budget. So in the preschool, we have to look at it a little differently also, because some of the students in there are special education students. That's really the reason for the preschool, so preschool. So we have to look at the ratio of typical students to special education students as to arrive at the tuition. So doing those calculations with those parameters, for the 2014-2015 school year, which is next school year obviously, I recommend, based on the costing of this, that we increase the tuition $100 a year for kindergarten from $3,000 to $3,100. This is about a 3% increase, and it is the first increase we've had in 2 years. I'd also suggest that we continue to offer a discount on anybody who fully prepays their kindergarten tuition, and that be raised from $2,860 to $3,000 from a strict money point of view, given the low interest rates, we really don't make that back, but from a administrative point of view, it's much easier to get the money up front, so it really is a worthwhile option to utilize. The preschool is a little bit more difficult to figure out. This is the first increase we've actually had in several years. So therefore, I recommend an increase in preschool tuitions overall of 6%. As I say, it's the first increase in several years. It is necessary to make sure we're covering the cost of the program that are the tuition part of the program. So the recommended new tuitions per class would be as follows here. The 2-day would go up $8 from $137 to $145. The 3-day up $12 from $205 to $217. The 4-day up $16 from $263 to $278. And the 5-day up $38 from $630 to $668. As I said, it's the first increase in several years, and these overall tuitions are very competitive still to the overall market for this number of days and service.
For what unit of time is that?
Weekly? Is that
What-
weekly? Is that weekly?
Oh,
monthly?
no, that's monthly.
Monthly?
Sorry.
What?
Week for preschool, that's pretty steep.
My kids went to daycare, so what the heck am I home?
It's monthly.
Why the steep increase? It was like, it's like $4 a day, and then you hit the 5-day and it goes 38.
I'm sorry, Lou?
Well, 2 days, $8, you went up $8, 3 days, you went up $12, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16. You get to 5-day and you jump over to 38. I'm just kind of wondering.
Yeah, the 5-day is a full-day program.
So the others all half day.
Yes.
Okay.
It's really 10.
Right. Actually, 4 days. I have a question.
What did you say?
Gave them a $2 break.
They get the bargain.
They are, actually.
Yeah, they are.
I
So
think
there's no 5 half day?
No, it's
Okay.
Well, I see I have no questions about the preschool, but I'm just wondering, in light of what direction we might be headed with kindergarten, hopefully someday not having it be a tuition-based program, does it make sense to increase the tuition now and make us even more sorry to see it go and make us more dependent on it? And I'm just wondering if that makes smart sense.
Well, I mean, this is the cost of the program, so I think while it is still being fully, I understand what you're saying, and I mean, I guess that would be an option of the school committee, but you would be subsidizing the program, whereas every year we've had it at full cost. So until I think there's a plan to, accept it and approved, who knows when that will occur, no matter what the intentions are. I think to be consistent and probably to be fair, we would continue to go with, the actual cost of the program, I think. That would be a reason to do it.
Because remember, in whatever year we start that, we'll also have the delta of the new costs for operating that program.
Huge.
So,
Where would a parent find online you've got those trifolds with the curriculum about what your child should expect to learn in certain grades. Do we have that for kindergarten and pre-K?
we definitely have it for kindergarten. I'd have to double check if it's online for the preschool. It should be.
Okay. So how would somebody find that?
It's under teaching and learning on the parent resource tab.
Okay.
That was the question.
You raise a good question.
I don't know if we should if we've been consistently not subsidizing, I don't think we should start just because there's an intention. Just be consistent until change. Do I make a motion if I want to? Does anybody else want to discuss?
Technically, you make the motion and then you discuss under the
sorry.
motion.
Do I make a motion to...
We kind of mix it up.
Do I make the motion to discuss or do I make the motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve George's recommendation to increase kindergarten and pre-K per the document provided.
Second.
We're ready to vote, or does anybody have any discussion? All right, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Next up is the student code of conduct. Have these in your packets. Basically, the idea here was not to decide that we can start breaking the law as students or members of the community, but the idea was to streamline, rather than list a long list of things that we shouldn't be doing, we referenced that you can't break the law instead.
That's good.
In an effort just to streamline it, as I said. There's really nothing else going on with this particular revision. And I don't know if anybody has any questions or...
I have a minor quick one.
Sure.
It's going to be an easy one.
Okay.
There's a line, and I haven't looked at this since the last meeting or 2 meetings ago. If behavior creates an interference in school, but I don't know that I saw the definition of what the interference is. And you may have already had this discussion prior to me coming on. So
We've had the discussion, but you bring up a good point. Maybe it needs to be better defined here.
I'm fearful that interference is going to have a wide range of interpretations. So is it interference to the teachers, to the administration, to the students, to the community, to the parents, to whom? And at what level?
Sure. So to follow the sentence completed, so the if it creates an interference as deemed unacceptable conduct, and then here are examples of unacceptable conduct, we're not defining what the action might be, because again, those could be multiple actions.
Mm-hmm.
But if they result in these kinds of activities, then it is an interference.
So disruptive behavior is up to the who makes the final decision?
It's redundant, isn't it?
So-
Disruptive behavior is just
Is an interference.
right.
But I'm not picking
So the
on that
principal
one.
has the final say,
Okay. So
but
he makes-
obviously the teacher is the one who's observing it, and they're
Right.
going to make the first call. The idea is that the principal, through a variety of activities, has built a community that has very common expectations around what will be acceptable and tolerated and what won't be. And we try to do that pre-K through 12 as well.
Okay.
We talked about this for a while, actually, trying to decide, was it enough to just say people have to be respectful and follow the law? And came to the conclusion of the group, I don't know if everybody agreed, but the conclusion of the group was that there should be some things listed
Yeah.
that are just, absolutes, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Even though it's redundant in some places.
Oh, I think you have to do that. Otherwise,
So-
there's too much interpretation.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or suggestions? Well, is there some place where we're going to further define interference or disruption? Or is it refer them back somewhere?
Well, again, it would just be another list, and so I think the idea is that if you do something that the educator believes then causes examples of this nature as they are unacceptable conduct, and therefore you've broken the code of conduct.
But I think, is your questions, I don't want to jump in, but I think the interpretations by the teacher and the principal, the control lies with the teacher
Absolutely.
and the principal. So they're really the ones who are deciding if it truly is a disruptive behavior.
Right.
Do we say that?
Well, in other policies, the principals are responsible for the behavior of students, so. I mean, that's clear.
Is it,
I guess I'm a little confused. I mean, we're sort of saying, okay, this is unacceptable, but,
so is a whole bunch of other stuff. Is that what you mean?
well, it's like, okay, this is unacceptable, but we're not spelling out consequences or
That's not a
whatever.
policy.
So,
There's a policy that follows this.
okay, so we have to sort of agree on our definition of unacceptable before we move to our policy about
Right.
what to do about it.
Right.
This is not an easy,
No, it's not.
it's not an easy thing to do because I kept wanting to take things out because it seemed obvious, and other people didn't want to take anything out because it's nice to be able to say, but it says right here, you can't do that. So this was sort of the compromise that we landed on, which has a bit of both worlds. It's a list of bad stuff, but there certainly are other bad things you could do that aren't on the list.
I'm not saying you can do them.
Oh, no,
So
I-
maybe you could possibly.
But I'm saying that would get you, things you could do that would get you in trouble
Right,
that
so this-
did not make the list.
Right,
But example.
so that should cover it.
But from what you just said, as a person reading this for the first time, a parent going in and looking at it, should there be something that says, okay, this gets you here, but you need to go to the next one? You know, as far as the consequences and everything, should it reference something else?
I mean, that's certainly, I mean, from a parent perspective about understanding what the conduct will have for actions. I don't know, throwing in a sentence about that would be fine.
I like the last sentence being rephrased, and I don't, unless this is not necessary, any action prohibited by law shall be reported to the authorities. Why would we not report any action prohibited by law to the authorities?
I don't think there's any implication that you wouldn't.
Wouldn't, yeah.
It's just saying that it can
Probably
be, it
just-
should, well, it will be, it shall be, but if there were any doubt about whether or not it should be reported, the answer, or if it can be reported, the answer is yes.
This is the
Right.
student code of conduct.
That's right.
too,
It's a
not
student
the
Right.
administrators.
Right.
code of
Right.
conduct.
And in high school, they're gonna make mistakes. So
Say it again?
Students are gonna make mistakes. I mean, I'm not saying that assault.
Yeah,
is
but if
good.
it's a action prohibited by law, whether you made a mistake or it was intentional, it's
So I
prohibited
think,
by
I
law.
think the word can is like a warning to the students, like,
Right.
watch
Okay.
out, because this can be reported to the authorities.
Okay, I just don't want it
It's
to be
just not a school
interpreted as,
policy.
we might not.
Right, it's not just the principal saying, don't do that, you could be in trouble with the law.
Right.
I think it's perhaps avoiding any confusion that a student might have that, oh, if I misbehave, then I'll be in trouble with the principal, but it will end there. No, if it's a legal issue, it
Right.
goes beyond.
It should, yeah. Okay, I'm done.
I move that we accept the newly revised student code of conduct.
Second.
All those in favor? Are we gonna amend it at all? With all we
Not if
talked
we're
about?
approving
Is
it.
anything happening to it? So is it as amended, or is it as it sits right now?
The motion was as it sits, right?
Right, the
Yeah.
most recently
Right.
amended version that we are looking at for tonight.
You talking about
Right.
that sentence, adding a sentence?
Yeah.
It's up to
From the
people.
discussion that happened. are we
What was
adding
the
in-
sentence that was going to be added?
From, as a person coming in to look at it for the first time, this is just an opening, and then it would go on to something else, to another policy. This isn't, it went more to what Maureen was saying. You know, you're
The
reading this.
consequences.
Right. So, as a parent reading it, or somebody reading it for the first time, you read this, does it send you somewhere else? Is this it?
So we could say something to the effect of, management of student behavior will be explained in the student handbooks.
And is that written already?
It's in the policy around
It
student
is, and it
discipline.
was recently reviewed.
Right.
Yeah.
My opinion is that it stands just fine the way it is, because it's the code of conduct. It's not
And they're not
anything
getting
else,
just
so we're
this
saying what
page.
the expectations are.
Right, they're not gonna get just.
Like that's, we're just getting this page, so this is all we see right now.
Right.
But if they're looking at the student policy handbook, they're gonna have
The
the
whole
whole packet of everything there. So they look up and go code of conduct, and they see the next paragraph.
reference to.
What happens to you, or whatever.
There it is. The one sentence I was wondering if we could move is the if behavior off-site, if we could put that on the end. Because to me, when I first read it, I thought these were off-site behaviors you were referring to. So it's really not. That's an addition to. So the if behavior off-site sentence, if that could be listed
After the
after the list, it would be more clear to me. Because it took me a while to figure that out.
I do agree with that.
Yeah,
So
I do too.
I withdraw my motion for the purpose of incorporating that in if
That'd be a
possible.
friendly amendment, that's all.
Oh,
Yeah, as amended.
right.
I've been here long enough.
So your motion was just amended,
Right.
and now we have a second still?
Yeah, you definitely have a second.
Okay. And then all those in favor of Jeff's amended motion?
I have to abstain.
All those opposed? Okay.
Why?
You abstain? Yes, I'm abstaining, because I guess I can't, I guess I need to see what it's supporting before I can really say, yeah, this is.
What the consequences are, is that what you
Well,
mean?
I mean, I guess where we're going with this, and, you know, whether or not I agree that,
Well, if the punishment wasn't severe enough, then you'd be in favor of
Conan, you know, if
removing
it,
the.
I mean, like, to me, you know, this is a very wide range, but it's, and this is a not all-inclusive list, but, I don't know. It passes, it doesn't matter.
Well, it does matter, but we want your opinion.
Right, but once upon a time, we did discuss that we don't always have to be unanimous in
That's
order
right.
to
We did.
to make a decision.
You're absolutely right, we did. Okay. Moving right along to old business. A little behind schedule, afraid to say. We have the calendar discussion. We have here vote requested, however, I am not opposed to not voting tonight. I don't know how everybody else feels about it. We have Proposal A and Proposal B, which are not very different, except for the professional development day in April surrounding vacation time, right before April break.
It was a half day in February.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's
that's
two.
different?
Yeah.
Okay.
In December, isn't it?
There's a couple.
November had a.
Well, Monica's here. Okay, never mind, Monica.
I thought the recommendation was B.
It was.
The one that I recommended was B, right, but we have both in front of them.
So one idea is we could just go ahead and vote right now. Another idea is we could see what happens in the early stages of the personnel discussions to see if there's any flexibility within the teachers' union as to not having to follow that particular rule about the professional development day that must follow a half day of teacher conferences. And then perhaps we wouldn't have to go with B, we could go with A.
For that part of it. Because
Right.
the other thing is, know what election day is, whether it's a staff development day, which it is on, or
Okay.
parent-teacher conferences, which it is on A, whereas B, it's a vacation day. So that's,
And the teachers preferred that, right?
the town.
Town clerk.
The town clerks prefer the vacation day, but I'm not sure that,
Well,
No.
but part of
Monica,
their,
you're shaking your head.
part
They
of
just
it,
don't want students.
Right.
well,
Or parent-teacher conferences.
Traffic, right?
They don't want additional traffic.
Right, but professional development wouldn't be students.
Right. So they're okay with no one or just staff.
Okay.
Student staff or just staff.
Okay.
Which is on.
When's the date we have to approve this by? Like, what is the date?
Well, I think that it's helpful for parents in terms of planning to be done really by the end of February, because you start getting questions from parents about
I've already
planning
got
summer
some.
vacations and so forth, so. And especially if it's not, especially if we have a Labor Day, a before Labor Day start, we really have to tell parents, because even this year, even though we did it very early last year, we had parents call and say, I didn't know that it was starting before Labor Day, and they book rentals and so forth right through Labor Day.
Well, the other part of that, Nancy, is that when I read the survey results,
I just read them too.
yeah, when I read the survey results, 54% wanted to start after Labor Day, so that's more than half had preferred it. And 45% didn't care about getting rid of February vacation, which was a much higher number than I ever thought possible. And 56% thought that they didn't mind getting rid of a vacation at all to make sure we started later and ended earlier. So, you know, those are real numbers
How
from
many wanted to end earlier?
56%. It was kind of a joint question. It wasn't
Okay.
one question and then the next. So, you know, I know that disrupting the calendar from status quo will get feedback, I'm sure. But if we ask for feedback and 450 people gave it, shouldn't we at least listen to the feedback? I don't know.
I'm gonna have a hard time with this one too. And I understand not wanting to break out of the pack because it's not, and it's not about, it's not the way it's done. It's that there's other implications with other schools and the state, and I totally understand that. But if we don't want to know what people think and what they prefer, then we shouldn't be asking them. I respect the fact that we did it and now we're telling them what they told us, but now we got to do something about that. And I think there's a letter, right? Wasn't there some correspondence on it? And, you know, it's part of the buzz on the street as well. So I think we have to start to define a point of view. And I think what I heard last time was that we really don't want to eliminate either one of those weeks of vacation. But
I thought I heard the teachers felt that it was such a disruption to school too. So I don't think the teachers were surveyed, the parents were. And the parents' voice, if you look at majority, is to maybe not have a March, but maybe not have a February, just have an April.
Right, just have an April.
And what I heard but not surveyed was teachers had feelings in agreement with that, so.
And I think that this question is so loaded that we have to find out a little bit more what's behind that. Like, what would they tolerate and what would work? And to your point, what do the teachers want as well? But, I mean, I'm concerned about the teachers.
The teachers had opinions because of continuity of their job in education, and that's
Right.
a real concern, I think.
Especially with MCAS coming up in March.
Right, and that's, yeah, I mean, you can look at it right there on the calendar. I mean, it's beautifully coded, but there's not a whole lot going on between January and March because there's so many days off.
Doesn't have 15 weeks of school in a row without real interruptions.
I was thinking maybe half of February vacation, that's, I don't know.
Well, you
You have
Because
Monday,
you still have the Monday.
right, so maybe do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you get 2 days back, you can put them back at the beginning of August, we need to find one more day, now we don't
But
start.
ask the teachers about that, because, you know, what happened after Christmas break or winter break, when we came back and there were 2 days left in the week? Was that a productive 2 days? I don't know.
Well, one was a snow day.
But, okay, so pretend that they weren't snow days, would they have been productive days? So,
Startup is different. Startup, it would have been productive.
I just want to throw this out.
Historical perspective. We have asked a calendar committee to work every year diligently on this project, and a couple of times we kind of ticked them off, quite frankly, because they worked hard on a recommendation, and then it comes to the committee, and
We have a big
we don't even we just kind of disregard what they come up with and say, but maybe we should have March break instead, and they've already made a whole proposal, and it's made up of teachers and students and parents and administrators, and why are we calling a committee if we're just gonna?
I don't have any problem with the recommendations. My issue is that there's one question on here that seems to have huge implications, and the response of 56%, that 56% of the respondents said, I would be in favor of you eliminating one of those weeks, is huge. So that's why, if we move forward with one of these recommendations, recommended calendars, whichever one is the one that we want to do, B, fine. The only way I would feel comfortable going along with that is if we made a concerted effort and I would be happy to help work on a survey, that we dig deeper into this to find out what the constituents want and what they're comfortable with and what would work best for a learning environment.
With an eye towards next year or the
Yeah,
one
that's
after?
Yes,
right.
yes,
Right.
with an eye towards next year.
Nine for
Yes.
next year. And let it be known when the survey goes out, we're really going to,
We want to, we want
wanna
to be
change
involved
the-
before I don't want to control somebody's survey, but I do want to see what we're asking, what are we asking, and who are we asking it of, so that we don't have to go back again. And then everybody has their information, we can make an informed decision and be done with it.
And if you could make it as a half the week and ask them, do you want the whole week?
Well, there's options, right, for the people that are
so
managing the
maybe
committee.
give the proposed calendars as part of the survey instead of just the questions.
Oh, gosh, but then they have to do all that work and you're
Throwing out
taking
an
the
idea.
control out of their
Yeah.
hands.
Maybe we do 4
I'd like the
proposed
input, but not the
calendars.
control from them.
Yeah, but then it's tricky because then if we get results that are similar to this, we'll say, oh, the people who are most passionate about it responded to the survey. They're a minority of the people. We don't just turn over decisions. It's not a.
But you're giving everyone equal opportunity to respond, so it's not,
But we've had this kind of conversation before that that's abdicating our responsibility. We're
Oh.
elected.
I don't think so.
Well,
I think that informs your decision, doesn't it?
Well, it depends
It
on
depends
how
whether you're talking about,
informed the
like-
decision, the input is.
So, like, the calendar committee knows a lot of stuff about
Right.
what has to happen. They know contractual agreements, they know number of days that have to be worked, they
Right.
know number of professional development days. And people who are responding to these surveys, not to be, you know,
No, they
insulting to
don't,
anybody,
they don't know.
They don't know
Right.
all that. And I think that it's
So
true,
we
that's
didn't
what
ask-
we're being elected to be informed and to know. And to consider everything, not just the wants of some families' vacations.
Right.
I mean, there are, you know, obviously educational implications, but also other things. I mean, like being out of sync with other communities in the state of Massachusetts and how that impacts teachers and if they have families that have different vacations now that they wouldn't jive with. Or somebody like me who wants high school kids to have an April break and a February break so that they can go visiting colleges while they're college students on campuses. And everybody has a different interest and a different reason why they want the calendar to be a certain way. And to just flat out take, I don't know, a poll doesn't seem like it's considering everything equally
It
enough.
wouldn't tell us. It would tell us nothing because it's not a random survey. If you wanted to set up a scientific random survey, then I think that would be valuable information.
So you don't
But a
think,
survey where you just push it out and say, if you're interested, respond to this, and the people who are most concerned about it respond. So I think that probably skews the results.
Well, I don't feel
I don't agree with
passionately
you.
about the schedule,
I do. The
honestly.
people
I don't
who
have
would
real
respond to a
passion.
calendar survey are the people
but you're
who
giving
are
everybody
upset about
equal
the calendar.
opportunity to respond to.
That's
No,
not scientific.
people may not be upset about the calendar, they want a voice.
We don't know how to interpret that.
Have you ever built surveys before and analyzed the results?
Well, not a pro, but I
Do
think
you have?
Kathy is.
No, I
I
do
certainly
fun.
have. I don't under, you know what, my whole point is, I think we've asked for feedback, we've gotten feedback, and if there's more due diligence we need to do to understand what the constituents who are involved in believe, then if we are going to recommend adoption of the calendar as it stands for this year, my whole point is, then let's do the work that we need to do to make sure we have the answers that we need for next year before the calendar is developed. That's all.
If the survey we take isn't used to help us with information, why are we doing it?
You know, I ask people an
If we're making a
opinion.
decision, why, you know, why are we doing the survey if we're not using the information? And that's
Just like-
what, I know there's some of them like, you know, do you
Arguably,
want?
we are though. If it were 90%,
But I mean,
maybe it would be
And then
very
sometimes
different
we have to
feeling.
think, like, do you want a school to start Labor Day? Well, 54% says no, they don't want it to start before Labor Day, but then, 72% says they don't want it in late June. So there's 54 people who want to start after Labor Day and get out early in June and have both vacations. And, so.
But Jeff, just because you ask someone their opinion and they give it to you doesn't mean you're going to do what they say, because as Nancy says, there are other extenuating circumstances that influence that decision. But you still got to ask, or don't send out the survey. Just make the decisions, and then, then it's incumbent on us to find out what do people want.
Well, I mean, that's what we've done, right? We have a calendar committee, they've made a
Right.
recommendation, and now we have to decide, are we ready to vote on it or are we not? And the survey is making it more difficult, not easier, in my opinion, because now we have conflicting data with what we.
Well, I think what we just learned is that the questions in the survey don't yield results that are actionable.
Right.
So we can't take action based on the real, just like Julie said. We can't ask them if they want it late, to start late and start early and have everyone say yes, and then we're all doing a failed job,
Right, 'cause
right?
we still have to
So
get it
maybe
180
next year
days.
we work on our survey, so we can see if we can create a survey that has actionable results from the data
In combination with the calendar
committee and knowing the legalities of contracts and all that other data
Right.
and history and things
So
like
how
that.
soon would you have to do that so that it would actually
When do you
be
release your
worthwhile?
survey? When did you release the survey?
Yeah, so we have time to do the next one prior and.
So you mean for
I
next
actually
year?
think you should
It's
be
too
doing
late,
it
right, to do
now.
it for this year?
Right.
So that-
It's for the following school year.
Okay.
Oh, for 15, 16?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were
Oh,
talking
for
about.
God's sake, that's why you gave me a hard time.
Yeah.
It has to
Yeah,
be-
I think that wasn't clear.
You said for next year. This is for next year.
No, for the following year's planning purposes. Thank you very much, Monica. Understood?
Okay. I personally think we need to move along on the agenda. Do we want to vote tonight? Do we not want to vote tonight on the calendar?
The recommendation is B.
I think we need to wait till after the policy thing to see if we have any hopes of
Okay.
what you were saying.
Personnel?
Yeah.
I would be in favor of that. Or we could vote now. I would probably not vote for the recommended plan, I'll be honest, so.
So there's a meeting that you're getting ready to have that could influence this?
I don't know. I
But
have no
it-
idea if we might be able to.
There's probability, is the probability
If you take
50% or greater?
I don't know the answer to that, sorry.
That it
No.
could influence it?
Yes,
We-
because
we'll
they
need to make
changed
a
the
survey.
contract.
No, we don't take any more surveys.
Yeah, so if we were to vote for A, we would have to address with them because it doesn't follow the rules as they stand now.
Oh, well, then why,
Well, then you could vote for B and we wouldn't have that problem.
oh,
I just think that A is a smoother, better plan than B.
So do I, but, so what would be the harm in waiting to vote following this meeting that you referenced? Would there be, would it be, not for you?
Yeah. It's not bad.
No? Well then, I make a motion
Wait.
that we wait to
Table
vote
calendar.
on the calendar decision until post whatever this meeting is
Next
that's
meeting.
important to understand.
Great, I'm in agreement. Is there, do we need to actually take a vote to table something?
Motion to table.
Okay.
Is that what you want me to say?
All those in favor of tabling the proposal?
Raise your hand.
I was voting already.
Okay.
Maureen?
Oh,
Okay.
motion to table.
Okay, we have,
calendar.
So you have how many? You have
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses? Were you a no?
No, I voted to.
6
table.
yeses
Okay, so,
and 1 abstention.
no, I was ready to vote, so I voted no.
Oh, and 1 no, sorry.
Maureen, no.
But on the survey?
Okay.
All right. So, next time, in our next meeting, we should plan to vote.
Yep.
So everybody just be prepared. Okay, the Assabet Valley Collaborative Agreement. Michael, would you like to handle that?
Sure. So as I said earlier in my superintendent's report, this is essentially the same document you approved 2 years ago with alignment with the new law passed in 2012 to essentially make collaboratives more accountable for their financial and supervisory components, and to add Grafton.
You have a motion?
What does that do to our fees and everything, and our payment schedule, try adding Grafton?
It doesn't do anything. It didn't lower our fee, or, we're not dividing it. We're just making them pay the same amount, so it didn't divide
So
anything.
you just get larger?
We just got larger, right.
I move that we accept the amended agreement to the Aspen Valley Collaborative.
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Citizens' comments? Anybody have items for consideration for the next agenda they'd like to bring up now? You don't have to do it now, you can do it later time as well. Just trying to make a new habit of putting it on the agenda so we don't forget it.
Technology.
Technology?
Technology.
What about technology?
As far as what's going on with the high school, I'm network it, basically.
Okay, now this is an agenda item, right? Not to discuss now? Yeah.
Okay.
Do that on your list, Michael?
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
The full day kindergarten?
Yes, it will be part of the budget discussion,
It'll be addressed on the 28th.
so that will be at our next meeting. It won't be a separate line item, but it will be it won't be a separate agenda item, but it will be discussed in the budget.
Okay.
We'll have the waiting, how many people on the waiting list for each town and all that.
Sure, I can have that.
Yeah, just so we can.
Sure. Yeah, that would be very good idea. Okay, now we need a motion to go into executive session, and who does it better but Maureen?
No one.
Yes, we all have our role in life. I move that we go into executive session for the purpose of discussing a grievance presented by the NREA on a matter of collaborative sharing of lesson plans, and to discuss strategy for upcoming negotiations for Unit A and Unit C successor agreements, and that in addition to the school committee, our executive session includes Superintendent Wood, Assistant Superintendent King, Administrative Assistant Alita Masterson, the
Director of
Director
HR.
of Personnel, Monica Pisco, and
School Principal Sean O'Shea.
School Principal Sean O'Shea, Assistant School Principal
Laura Friend.
Laura Friend, and
Association representation.
and association representation. And that at the conclusion of our executive session, we will adjourn the executive session back to regular session for the sole purpose of adjourning our regular meeting, and that no further business will be conducted at that time.
Yeah, just a friendly amendment to be clear, we have two items to discuss. Did you get the second piece in there?
She did.
Yes.
Okay, I missed that.
We need to roll call. Lynn?
Yes.
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 Mary Jane,